So I'm Vanessa Richards, and I'm joining from Statlium Government Services. And I've been working here for the past almost 4 years. Started out as a receptionist and um, started creating libraries of all the paper kind of archive documents in the CCAN, kind of around Statlium knowledge. And then kind of found out about the project that we were doing together with the LTC on data governance. And so that's kind of where I'm at. And these webinars were kind of just an idea to start creating the conversation to um, get involvement from everyone, members in the whole territory to contribute and to talk about data and what that means to them and the ways that we can um, organize it and create policies to protect it and access for finding what's needed because I know that's always a hard part is trying to figure out how to find things when you need it. And technology is great, but sometimes it's difficult to organize it all. Hi, Toby and Byron. So yeah, and Peter.
Hi guys, my name is Peter Pritchard. I've been working for the Littlewood Tribal Council and the Stallion people for about 3 years now as the IT system administrator and project manager. I was part of the IT transformation project at the Littlewood Tribal Council, in which we put together an internal IT service for the Tribal Council, and since then we've started our data governance initiative, which is in partnership with the Regional Information Government Center, RIGC. And the scope of that project is to get out to all 11 of the Statlium communities, do a data needs assessment with them, and then to put together an advisory board to develop protocols and laws on Statlium data governance moving forward. We're about halfway through with our assessments, and we're in the middle of doing our interviews right now for the advisory board. And yeah, it's been a great project, my favorite so far in my career. And yeah, really glad to talk to James today about that and all things data governance, given his much longer history in this field than me and the rest of my team. So yeah, it's going to be great to hear from your experience.
Yeah, thank you, James, for coming on for this webinar. You've just been such a great connector and networker, and your experience is just so vast. I've really appreciated just since we've started kind of on this journey of Statlium data governance to have been able to meet you and that we get to work together. So see here, and then let's see. James, do you want to introduce yourself or should we go through the rest and then you introduce yourself after? Maybe more will be coming on, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, please, let's do a roundtable and then I'll finish it off. That'd be great.
Sounds good. Kyle, you want to introduce yourself? Or, not, or if you don't feel comfortable, that's fine too. Or Jerome, Obi.
Did you ask me if I wanted to introduce myself?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the library director of the Lillooet Area Library Association, and we're the public library that serves the Statland Territory, Northern Statland Territory. And yeah, I'm just interested to learn about what's going on. And also, like the BC libraries are engaged in trying to change stuff in the public catalog to increase accessibility. And, so for instance, a lot of our records say Lillooet Indians. So we're going in and just adding the word Shlatlum to each record. So if someone searches it that way, then they'll find it. And, so because we're doing that, and if we do any, like we're only changing that on our local record, but there's the capacity to change that for every record that's on this integrated library system. And so in order to do that, I need to do some consultation with Slatlam language speakers and stuff. So I'm aware of that, and I thought this might be a really good group to just listen to and learn and make some connections around this kind of work. And the public library system, I mean, we really serve a lot of Stratland people and have some valuable resources of local concern too. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Toby. It's great that we get to network on this because, I mean, data is a very broad category, and definitely the library, it's and it's kind of history, in this area, goes way back, and so that's great. I'm glad that we have that connection with you for sure. I think that's an important part of kind of the project we're working on too. That's awesome. And then, Karime, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Karime Jolie. I am the coordinator for Thompson Rivers University in Lillooet. And same as Toby, I am very interested to listen to this group. This is the first time I missed the last one, which I was a little sad knowing that was the Nadine from BC Hydro. So I gave a promise to myself to start listening, to start seeing these new groups, which is very important for us as we are DRU established here in Lillooet and Stallion territory, which is an honor for us. And we want to make sure that we are also following protocols, listening, updating, and working together.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karime. I know the work you've been doing with Nadine and Taya is just absolutely amazing. And the trade sampler, there's just so much going on. You're a busy lady. So I'm glad that you can jump on with us. And we'll have to do more in the future with you on this. But yeah, and we're discussing the Indigenous Tech Sector today as well. And at the Web Summit that, while we have First Nations, we have, other Indigenous kind of worldwide. Looking through that lens, there's always these very similarities and different things that come up. So it's really great to have you on the call today.
Thank you. It's just definitely an honor. We are in the Stallion territory working for Stallion with the Stallion students. It just makes total sense to continue being not just update, but working together.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. And then Byron, do you want to do an intro? You don't have to, but if you want to.
Yeah, Kato Alap in Snuknukua, Byron Flecky in Squachicha, Hucklet McCann. From the Diablo family on my mother's side, and then Ukrainian immigrants on my father's side. And I'm tuning in on my lunch break from work, and I'm a government lackey, so I'm with working with the public service right now, and I'm happy to join these and be a part of these and even just observe them to see if there's anything I can offer in my experience to contribute to the work that we're doing on behalf of the government. So Stadnium government, I should say. And so thank you.
Oh, super. That's awesome. Thanks, Byron. I know we've had a few emails back and forth the past couple webinars. You've been lucky on the draw prize, which we will get to today as well. We'll do a draw prize. Is there anyone else that would like to do an introduction? Lois, Ernest is on.
Hi, my name is Lois Adolph. I'm from the Shukawash Band. I'm just here to observe, and it's good to finally see the SGS doing informational sessions like this, because I often wondered what is going on up there in that building, but never really just hear about the programs. And pretty involved with all the band issues, surrounding issues, because my family is probably, or I have family probably on every reserve, and it would be really nice if the youth could start learning more about these, and if it could be taken into the schools too, because I think the gadgets and games are getting in their way of learning now. And it would be just excellent if they could have some kind of program that the youth could come in to learn about all these different things that were created back in the day through the hydro negotiations. I always listened to my dad talking about future, and I agree, it's a future. And it's good if the youth could get more involved in these types of created positions or office things that, because eventually we're not all going to be here. It'll be just great. I mean, thank you for letting me join. I'm just observing.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for taking the time to join. That's one of the things about this project that gets me most excited too, is getting the youth involved and getting them trained up in the technology that we're going to use to both preserve this data, store it, manage it, and all that kind of stuff. We've already met some really inspiring young people that are working in this field, both on the policy, legal side, on the tech side, like young people that are embedding First Nations principles directly into data center technology and all that sort of thing. And yeah, I agree that we've got to get them involved and bring them up to speed on what we're doing. And that's one of the things that we're going to do with SGS through the education department, is try and get out into the schools, just talk about the project and the kind of jobs that it's going to create.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Ernest, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning. Ernest Armand. I'm from Naquac, go to Statlium. I live here in Lillooet for the past almost 14 years now. I work for the Lillooet Tribal Council. I'm the ISET program manager. I do lots of other things as well. One of my passions in life is nation building, and for us to realize self-determination and self-governance and recognition of our title. And for that, it takes a lot of work for us to get ready to take on all those responsibilities, to step back into them. And so I think when we look at these kind of projects, to me, I call it a nation building project. It's something that will help us move forward. I'm a big believer in good governance and informed decision making. We need information and data to make informed decisions. We need to be able to access, control, share, own, possess our data. And it's a significant building block. And this project, I think it's one of my favorite nation building projects. And we're meeting a lot of different folks. And I think Peter and Vanessa talk about that all the time. We're actually making great networks. Got to meet James Delorme, just cuz, and and we're starting to meet a lot of different movers and shakers out there. I think I'm really impressed with is the people that are stepping forward to volunteer to sit on our advisory committee. It's awesome to meet more of our Statlium kinfolk, I'm going to call them, because we're all related. And I think it's cool to see that, because this is what we would searching for, is we need to find other folks to be involved. We need to get as many people involved, and it's from youth straight up to elders. Children need to be aware of this. And we're going to be changing the world, our world, with this project. And so to me, that's worth getting up in the morning for. I was a little late this morning, slept in, but hey, that happens, unfortunately. But hey, I'm glad it's cool today. And Byron Flecky, I've run into you a few times in the past. And we're still talking about trying to develop a census here in Statlium. That's probably one of our next moves. But hey, it's good to see you, sir. And I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ernest. Just a really quick one on the draw prizes before we go in here with James. We have Statlium t-shirt And we have a bag. So if you want to throw your email addresses into the chat, I can add you to the draw. And then, so James, do you want to do an intro, or shall we go into the questions, or what's your
Yeah. I'll try to be brief, which is tough for me. I'm a good talker, and I think everybody on this call will realize that throughout this process. So what I'll do is I'll talk about a little bit about my family connections, which is important to our protocols, and then we can certainly get into some questions. I do have a slide deck I could bring up on a very specific topic, which is part of my the work that I do. It's called a digital identity. And I'll start with a little bit about Mr. Delorme. And so glad to be coming to you today from the shared territories of the Channel people, or specifically in Tashot territory. Unfortunately, we're facing some forest fires, a couple of recent, and so it's a bit of critical situation here in these territories. But that just signals how important it is for us to, make sure that we have good data, and good ways to express our communities and how we're represented. So a little bit about myself, James Delorme. I'm a member of Klahoose First Nation, and that's under the Indian Act. My actually Klahoose are Coast Salish people, but where my family originate are actually in Treaty 4 territory in Saskatchewan. So dad is from Cowessess, and my Mosham, my grandfather's from Cowessess, and my Kokum, my grandmother's from Kakawistahau, which is right next door, and they're part of the Treaty 4 treaties. And but claim to fame is I transferred to Klahoose many years ago. My kids were really the focus of that transfer. And I felt that being a Klahoose member was going to be better for them. And lo and behold, the people appreciated who I was and what I did. And so they wanted me to run for what they call the Hagoose, which is the chief position. So I accepted, and I became the chief there for about 6 years, three terms under the Indian Act. And in that time, I was already working since the 90s on tech projects and various things and in that area. And so being the chief of Klahoose just let me get into that space a little bit more and try to implement some maybe early adoption of systems with, where I had some expertise as A+ certified through Microsoft to develop data sovereignty. So we're going back a ways, but my last tenure as the chief was 2017. And after 2017, I started to get into more work in the tech sector quite a bit in Web3 research. I have a research company, but we'll speed ahead and talk about where some of the work that I do currently, which is I'm the CEO of the Indigenous Infrastructure Fund Corporation. And I won't go into that role too much. It's one I'm very passionate about, and it's about financing major projects. And so, but why I was asked to come today was to talk probably on data governance and my experience. And so also wants to mention part of my introduction is that on the settler side of my family, my mother is Irish and Icelandic. So I like to joke I'm a Indigenous Viking. So yeah, there's Scottish and then there's the Icelandic side. But I think, the story of my life is it's about innovation and disruption. And that is really what our communities are all about. And it does not matter, where we come from, and it does not matter what part of the world we come from. We're humans here, and we're on that path of learning about new ways of doing things and using our historical natural law to guide that pathway. So I'll start us off in a good way and speak in Jutham language, and I'll say, Imot sam squagan, kochu kapi, nishtas geja. And so what I said was, I feel good. Da, 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 da. I do. I feel good. That's what I said. But I also said we come from this place, and we're all related. So we are all related, folks. And we're all related to do the best we can for our communities. So I have a saying, do the best you can while you can. So, so I've had various roles in the tech sector, and one of them I'll specifically talk about is the my role with under the OCAP principles with the First Nations Information Governance Center work on their 10-year plan. I was helping KPMG with the business use case of that strategy. And so that just kind of sets the table of, where I, have some experience with OCAP principles, because that was the leading guiding principles on the work. And so that being said, here I am now today. I want to mention my work with Stallion Government Services, but very specifically with Hotlip Nation, who you probably recognize. Many folks do. So Kupi Delorme has trusted me in helping support their council. And also Andrew Mercer, as the executive director, has been my guide, and I work with him very closely and the community. And we're doing a very specific project in conjunction or tied to specific work that SGS or Statlium Government Services are doing. So it's a real nice fit to piece these all together and come full circle and see what the possibilities are. And so just want a big shout out to Hotlip and big supporter of theirs. And then also very specifically Stotlium Government Services. Huge, hands raised to you for all the work you do. Really impressive, this data governance project with Vanessa and Peter. And Ernest, thank you for your vision and the work that you're doing. It's completely essential to the ecosystem of what this means. So that being said, I would love to open it up for questions. And Vanessa, you could be the lead, and but I really would love to get Ernest into this conversation, and also for Peter as well, because he's in that data governance space on the IT. So I really love, and especially I am, but really love this the opportunity to have this discussion. And I can certainly pull up at some point my digital identity slides, and we can talk about my other relationships that I have with business.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, James. Yeah, so at this point, so everyone who's here, I see Robin. Just want to open the floor if you'd like to introduce yourself as well. So you just jumped on. We met at Web Summit.
Oh, thanks. Good morning, everybody. Sorry, it's just found the link actually, so I thought I'd jump on. My name is Robin Billy. I'm from the Secwepemc Nation, Adams Lake Indian Band, and spent many years in assisting First Nations set up their corporations, and did a lot of work in title and rights negotiations for a lot of the bands. And now kind of moved on into my own and assisting First Nations build out major projects on their lands. So film studios, data centers, real estate developments, housing, all types of different projects. So yeah, thanks for the time and introduction, and look forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. That's awesome. You could jump on, Robin. I know you got lots going on there. That's really exciting. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing too, for between nation to nation, there's a lot of economic development going on, and so much the collaboration is just awesome, and networking. So it's great to have you here, Robin. So I'm just taking a look here, James. So from the data governance aspect of it, I kind of ended up getting to deal with something here. So your personal journey into the tech sector, I mean, that's kind of where we met you, was at the Web Summit. Do you have anything else that you'd like to explain on kind of your journey in the tech area?
Thanks. And it's interesting, Vanessa. It's this is when I was really looking forward to this conversation, and the reason why is because you feel kind of alone sometimes, and seeing Robin and the vast things that he's doing. you feel kind of alone because there's a lot of people in these spaces, but yet we're not all connected. And I think that's a occurrence that happens a lot in our communities. And so that's how I felt. That was the genesis, if you will, or the start of my journey into the tech sector. And it started with a simple question. And that simple question was, what is my identity as an Indigenous person? So that question came to me from a Clahoos member who asked me that. There's a residential school, 60 scoop, colonialism. It has really disrupted our people. And it has done that in a way that has changed how we have our worldview. And that worldview is what really prompted me to be able to make change in my own very small community at Clahoos. So to answer that question, that really is, most people think, oh, you got into tech, because of your experience with being a technician, or you got into it because of your interest in technology, but that's not the case. It's actually rooted in data governance, and that is because when I started to go down that road, this was long before I was a chief. I started to realize, what is it that identifies us? If we don't have, we've been taking away our language, we've been taking away, family connections through these colonial systems. What is it that we have that actually binds us and shows our true identity? And that's our cultural practices. So food harvesting, going out on the land and being a part of being on the land, and doing those activities clearly identifies us as who we are in our Indigenous identity. So that was building off of that in my life, and this was in the early 90s. I was exploring the internet, and there was things like dial-up internet and internet connectivity, which a lot of folks nowadays, we somewhat take it for granted that we've got internet, but there's still a disconnect with internet connectivity in communities, and which is a whole topic to discuss. However, that was really that focal point where I said to myself, there's something here. There's something here that we are, as Indigenous people, are not part of. And that really pushed me to become stronger in promoting not just internet connectivity, but for us to be participating. And if you look at the First Nations Technology Council, they've done the research, and there's definitely a gap for Indigenous people with technology, and we're falling behind. However, where we're gaining is that communities are starting to be what I call early adopters. And so that early adoption of, it's not just technologies, it's the ability to see that how important data is and how important it is for that archival process that needs to be aligned with IT, meaning technical, solutions need to go lockstep. And eventually I learned what information management and information technology is. So I am IT. And through my training, my research, there's been a myriad of opportunities for me to work as an Indigenous person, to help a tech company, help them understand the Indigenous lens, understand natural law. And it's never ending. Technology companies are really synonymous with not with ESG, with environmental, sustainable, and governance models. They're more aligned with capitalization, so making money. That's what they're all about. That's what brought me into the sector, is to find a way to disrupt, find a way to bring more Indigenous people, meaning my relatives and my friends, and realizing that we have to push that envelope on that subject and be better participants. So that's what drove me, Vanessa. That was the beginnings for me, and it was based on data governance. So it's like full circle now. Now we're talking in a big way, and Vanessa, your story at the beginning really sets the tone for that, because you talked about going in the archives, you talked about how to deal with the archives and what do we do, and how do you put that Indigenous lens to make sure that it's embedded in that system. So it's less on the IT, it's more on the IM. And that's where I like to focus communications.
Right. Yeah. The information management aspect of it really became evident to me while at SGS. And, Lois, for a lot of people, they're like, SGS, what is that? Or they don't know what's going on here. And, the whole purpose of this webinar is to create that connection of communication. What is it that community needs? What information are you needing to make informed decisions? What information do families and young people need? What are the greatest needs? And so, as and even from the LTC's perspective with Peter and Ernest, you guys can kind of talk about your departments. But eventually, I'd like for with this whole data governance project and connecting all these networking between IT and IM, is to be able to have a way for community members to be able to access all the information that these organizations like SGS and LTC hold. When you have a request for something, either whether it's information about records or events or whatever. I mean, data or information is such a broad thing, but that there is access to that information and there's protection on it. So it's not like everybody's, is not open in that way, kind of, because there's a lot of confidential, sensitive information, and there's a lot of information that needs to be repatriated, and that's kind of part of the project that we're working on, and James is helping us with as well. But, Peter with the IT, and Ernest with the ISET, you guys could probably talk about more, that area of it and how that really corresponds with serving Statlium and each member.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, again, and that's how we came into this project is once we completed the IT infrastructure overhaul at LTC, the call for from our IGC came out shortly after that. So the timing was great for us to get into this field. And yeah, and as James was saying, one of the most interesting things about all this work has been meeting other people that are already doing it. In this project, one of the things we initially thought we were going to be doing is developing our own data needs assessment, and it turned out that when we started speaking with the guys at our IGC, they already had one that they needed someone to test with. So, and it's been a lot of that through events like the Web Summit, which James invited us out to, which was absolutely amazing. We also met just a ton of people that have already done some fascinating work on this and that aren't planning it, but have actually done it. I know one of our candidates that we spoke to for the advisory board demonstrated during a call how she fills out requests from community members to provide information through a web portal that has all the access levels taken care of. And from the end user side, it was really straightforward. You just log onto a website, put in your username and password, and you see all the community information that's available to you. And it was organized like that. So yeah, meeting people like that have done this work and that are continuing to do it and improve upon it has been really exciting.
Yeah. We're meeting Robin as well. You've done a lot of work in that area in the past as well. Ethan, who was on one of our past webinars as well. So yeah, it's really been great networking, great connecting, and Ernest is dealing with a lot of data analysis with what he's working on with health and the conversations, even connections we've been having in the health area have been really great, and it's all connected together in a kind of wider vision, which Ernest has the greatest way of putting it, I guess. So Ernest, if you want to jump on. Really how it fits into the whole plan of self-determination and title and rights.
Yeah. I don't know where to begin. Just thinking, listening to what James talking about, I think really where he comes from and his passion. Where I come from was from more of an organization development perspective. And I've always been involved in developing organizations. I helped develop the SGS. I helped develop the health transfer in BC. LTC, we're rebuilding the organization, repurposing it. I've done support work in the South, work with different organizations. I've seen their health society evolve 3-4 times in their governance structures. So it is about evolution and learning and moving forward. You know, in my training, I know I've got a bit of a background in public administration, and plus a lot of lifelong learning. But the one thing that always got me early on in my learning was we're always behind the curve, right? We're always behind. You know, we're part of. You know, we've been oppressed. We've been put in boxes on reserves. We're told how to think, when to think, why to think, and we're given resources and we're managing poverty, all that crap. And I got tired of it really fast. And I seen what condition that it left our people in. And so my purpose in life is to figure out how we're going to get out of that, how we get out of the Indian Act, break those cycles, address our challenges that we've adopted. And I think technology is going to wait for us to catch up. When I look at our governance work, it's our people and our capacity building that we need to focus a lot of attention on. Understanding technology, not being afraid of it is probably the biggest challenge. And understanding it's the next piece, but setting our own standards to fill that policy void is really critical. And so when I look at this stuff, it's about how do we build our capacity to actually take the responsibilities on. And so it's about teach us how to fish, not give us a fish. And so I really like this stuff, you know, and I've been working this stuff for quite a while. I've had an opportunity to work with various experts, different leaders in the fields, but I really learned a lot more, I think, recently, just because of people who are applying technology to real life situations that can benefit all of us. You know, even just having a conversation like this today. 5 years ago, this was something that I wouldn't have seen us doing, but it's always about how we make that connection, how we inform more. It's about raising awareness and understanding. So when I look at this kind of stuff, it's really about, when I think about from an organization point of view, the one thing that I always struggled with is how to retain our corporate knowledge. We look at our communities. A lot of our organizations, their community success is dependent on success of their administration. And, you know, when we look at, you know, on reserve, you know, we got chief and council and all these kind of things, but it's really delegated authority under the Indian Act. And when you understand that and appreciate that, you can think better. And to me, I think that's one of our challenges, because we've taken an oppressive system, we try to make the best out of it, and it may not be the best. And I think transformation and transition is going to require a lot of guidance. But I think we need to create a safe environment for us to be able to share, learn together, understand, be able to move forward. That requires information. That requires our knowledge and wisdom to be held and passed forward. And so we need to figure out ways of doing that. So I look at technology, like, you know, when GIS came out way back, you know, big time in the 90s, there was all kinds of platforms. And the thing that struck me the most about it was the education opportunity around us collecting our own data. And we still aren't quite there. And this has been 30 plus years now, almost. Right? And so we got to figure out how we take our technology, what we've learned, how we get comfortable with it, create the governance around it to allow us to use it for our benefit. Connecting with our people is interesting. Communication is one of our biggest challenges, and understanding about the ability to connect with people is one of our challenges. And I think technology is going to help us get there. Bringing in a wider body of people to be involved is critical. And I think that's where I think our governance is going to transform, because we're getting more people involved. We're actually actively engaging youth to actually lead the way in this area. We need to provide that direction for them. So when I think about all of our teachings about who we are and where we come from are fundamental for us to be grounded. And I think about that groundedness. It applies to all of our self-governance. It applies to our service delivery. It applies to our discipline. It applies to our ways of being. In Clackman and Huckman, those things need to be grounded in our governance and our laws and our policies and our practices. The teachings that we have are fundamental for us to understand our responsibilities. Our responsibilities are grounded in who we are and where we come from and our teachings and the things that we do. But we're not all programmed to do the same thing. You know, like, I don't know, I guess I gotta be careful what I say. Right? I don't want to be dumping on people. But for me, informed decision making, the ability to make free prior informed consent applies to everything, not just our relationship with the government and DRIPA and all these kind of things. It's things that we should be doing and practicing. And we need to learn that and get back to that. When I look at this kind of a project, it reinforces all of those values and principles that need to be captured and rolled into this mission. We look at how we build ourselves and build our capacities. We need to have that groundedness in it. We need to understand why that's important, where it is, why it is, and how we use the technology to advance that. Organization development is something that I get involved a lot with. But when I think about our fundamental governance structures and where we come from, you know, those things carried us for years. I'm a big believer in systems thinking. And I like to system think everything. It's about problem solving, right? It's about following the natural course. It's like using our natural laws as guidance and all those kind of things. You know, and I think when we look at how we strengthen ourselves, we always talk about strengthen the individual, strengthen our family, strengthen our community, and strengthen our nation. And we look at this day and age, we look at all of our challenges, our individuals are hurting a lot. Our families are hurting a lot. Our community's hurting a lot, and our nation's hurting a lot. And so any of these pathways that we can to help achieve that is critical. But I think we can't be held up. We have to start thinking about how we approach this in multiple streams of work. And I think the technology stuff, we need to catch up to it. We need to make sure that it's user friendly, because we have a large majority of our population that does not know how to use it properly and effectively and efficiently. So there's a lot of trust that we have to create. And a lot of that's your basic conversation. And so I think all of this stuff's related. I know I can't give you a presentation exactly on how that looks. But in my mind, all the stuff's at play. And, you know, and I think like people like James, he probably thinks the same way. It's our lifelong learning, our backgrounds, and our support networks that have helped us get here and help us do our work. And, you know, we all have different reasons why we're here. But I think the main thing is for the greater good. We're here to get in front of this stuff. It's about transitioning to a new reality. We're going to skip the 20th century and go to the 21st century, or is it the other way around? I forget how it goes now. But there is a lot of catch up. And when we look at, you know, technology, like you just look at our kids, they've been raised through technology now, right? I've been around a long time. My first teacher was the television set. I'm a Sesame Street graduate, and right. I went to school. When I went to school, I didn't even know the alphabet, for heaven's sakes, right? So, but that's how I learned. It's through TV and going to school and all that stuff. But nowadays, you know, we got babies, you know, how to run an iPhone, right? Unbelievable. And the type of information they're accessing, well, we need to fix that, right? But for us, we need to figure out how we start to get in front of that educational piece. We need to manage and be more active and involved. That comes back down to who we are, where we come from, and our responsibilities. It's about strengthening our families. It's about that healing process. So to me, all these things are tied to it. data management is involved at all levels of education. It's about managing. It's about making those informed decisions at the higher levels in our governance. And it all has to come full circle. And so having that appreciation, I think, really helps when we start thinking about how we develop our laws and our policies to guide us going forward. And it's fundamental. And I think when we look at our project, and we look at our advisory committee, for example, and it was interesting to have to be in those conversations. But everybody has a different background. Everybody has they have a different need to connect, I think, to our people. And they want to be involved and make a change because they're bringing something to the table. So to me, I think this model that we're creating is a good way of developing and expanding our governance and sharing our responsibilities and having the opportunity to broaden our knowledge and wisdom bases. And so those are pretty good principles and values that should guide anything that we do. It's about learning together, listen, learn, and act. It's one of my key principles that I follow, serves me well. And it's something that we need to start practicing a lot more of. Let's get our principles and values out there. Let's celebrate them. Let's ingrain them in what we do, including this work, technology, information management. And I think, to me, at the end of the day, it's about reconciliation. And it's at lots of levels. It's not what we hear in the media. Reconciliation is many meetings. And I think we need to understand and appreciate that. And reconciliation amongst ourselves is foremost and paramount. And the ability to do that through communication, information sharing, and gathering, being accountable, improving our life conditions. I think that's what the work is about. Being connected. Like I heard that word earlier. And I think about different strategies that I've been involved with. The First Nations Information Governance Center strategy, I love it. It's been cooking for a long time. And it's great to see the progress we've been making for the last couple of years. And the next couple of years is going to be grand, I think. It's going to be a big shift. And all this stuff, and when I go back to my teachings and when I went to university, the biggest thing is about getting organized. And when I system think what that takes, and I always ask that question, what's it going to take to achieve it? That's the pathway that I map out in my own mind, and I try to share that out. And that's kind of why we're here. Right? And so it's all related. I don't know if I'm making sense anymore, but there's a lot to it. And I think the work we're doing here was going to help make some sense of it. But if we don't, we got to make sure that it's based on the principles and values, what's brought us here, what's important to all of us. And we need to see ourselves in this work. It has to be done by us.
Absolutely. And, digital literacy is, another topic that we've discussed about holding workshops. And I think that's really important because technology is changing so constantly. It's so hard to keep up with it sometimes. So I'm just going to put a question in the chat here. And I mean, technology is pretty broad, but if you have some ideas of technology workshops that you think would be useful to you or that you're interested in, you can put that in the chat. And yeah, if anyone has any more questions or comments, please feel free to put your hand up. We definitely want this to be an interactive discussion. So,
I wanted to mention about a thing about the digital literacy where the tribal council at the Community Adult Learning Center have the community adult literacy coordinator, and the library also has that funding. So we have two people in the community whose job it is to really help people one-on-one with basic digital literacy. So I wanted to make sure everyone in this room knew that you can steer people to either the library or the CALP to get some of that hands-on support, because yeah, it's a vulnerability for youth and elders, both, of the amount of horrible information and wrong information and scamming that's really out there on the internet. So I just wanted to flag that, and also that that, we do try to work together on these things. And so if you as a group are identifying some public facing work like that and it needs to be done, I'd love to hear about it, because we are just trying, like we've even gone out to communities with that and done 4 elders in a community, a sort of basic introduction kind of thing. So yeah, just make sure everyone knows that. And yeah.
Yeah, that is really great. In fact, that networking connection is really vital. The meeting we had just even on, the drug crisis this last week, really came out just the amount of organizations that are working on the same thing, but just have never connected on it. And that's kind of a whole point of the webinars and the events that we'd like to, going forward, is what is everyone doing and how can we work together to make it the most effective plan forward. So that's really great to know. Ernest there, that's kind of like in your office there, and the library as well. So definitely we can work together on that. The workshops, are so broad. So, taking a look and seeing where maybe the gaps are at, and even where it comes into, business or organization, how it is in the, overall data governance. There's so many levels of technology, and it's great that those are being offered. So yeah, we definitely can be in touch and just be connecting on that so we can support each other in the workshops going forward for sure.
Also, if I can have just a minute to talk about quickly what DRU is doing in regards to literacy, in regards to computer basics. We did notice since I started working here at DRU, we noticed that literacy, computer basics was also really a big gap. As Ernest mentioned, any new youth, they are so up to date with technology, they know what they're doing, but we have a big gap. Elders and people like my age, or people who were not exposed to technology as we are, and it's changing so quickly that we notice that many people didn't know even how to either do research online to look for education courses, or to fill up a registration online, or to get access, or how to even add Wi-Fi to their laptops, computers, things like that. So since 2022, we started offering computer basics. It's kind of equal to a grade 11 computer basics. So students, elders, everybody's welcome. It's free tuition. We've been doing these classes twice a day. It's six hours per week, offered to community stallion members for free. It's a whole semester. It starts from either January to May, or September to December. Since 2022, each class has been from 8 to 13 students, and they do complete the semester. They do get also credits and also certificate of completion of their basic computers. And they learn from internet safety to how to even identify the mouse, the right, the left, how to edit photos, PowerPoint, word processing, Excel. So it's pretty nice class. Also, please share with everybody. Once again, this is Computer 0500 TRU, and it's one of our commitments to community to bring those basic education, so important for community, as a part of also our giving back to community. It's going to be offered again. Today we have an open house. People are welcome to come and register. And it's going to start September 15 to December. And we're committed to, again, also in the new year. Again, this has been happening since 2022. And we have a record of people, even from age 72, that was the people around their 70s completing this class, and they were so happy because they managed to understand the PC or the laptop. I also, Toby, I invite you to send anybody who might would like to take these classes. It's open to everyone. once again, we have funding every year for a semester or 2 semesters, and we can have up to 14 people in our classroom.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, we're gonna put together, we can share all of these digital literacy uh, uh, resources, and that is absolutely amazing, Karime. Thank you for jumping in with that. So I'll include that with our follow-up email with the recording. It'll also be online. And share it to whoever you think would be interested in that. That's an absolutely amazing opportunity. So many great opportunities. Thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons is we, compared to Kamloops, TRU and Lillooet, we run very differently. For us, it's more face-to-face, helping the students and anyone to register online. We do it manually, and we're helping little by little all those students that are willing to start kind of, okay, let's do it now online, and little by little our literacy in computers starts from that point. We will notice as soon as they come through the door who might need more computer skills, or who already has more, is more up to date on the computer skills, and then we invite people to take these classes.
Awesome. Absolutely amazing. I know I've been following all your online. You guys post lots, and Taya does too. It's really great to see that. I also noticed that Dalen jumped on here kind of while we were having discussion. If you wanted to introduce yourself, Dalen. If not, that's fine too. We're just wanting to make sure everyone has the opportunity to introduce themselves.
Sorry for jumping in so late. I was busy finishing up a project. My name is Dalen Joseph. I'm the communications coordinator for the Lillooet Tribal Council. I've been working on many things in my position here for the past 2 years. Yeah, I think one of the major things that I think that has been very helpful that we are doing, me and Peter, we're developing a AV workshop to help out, teach people how to use just like setting up a PA system to just make it easier for hybrid meetings and stuff like that. Um, yeah, we've only hosted one so far, but the one we've done was very helpful and kind of just helping us discover what we need to go more in depth with, in just like helping people understand better. Sorry, kind of just not used to talking like this. For my
Great.
first time, kind of just doing this. But yeah, so the workshop goes into allowing people to um set up speakers, mics, connecting the speakers to a mixer board that allows them to also put the audio into a computer. So that way people on like Zoom, Teams, or even just show people how to live stream as well. So that way it can be put up on Facebook, YouTube. So that way people can watch events and stuff like that later on because it's something that's been really needed um within all the communities. I feel like because just not everyone can attend stuff in person, and we've seen a lot of engagement doing these sessions for communities. A lot of people have loved being able to attend events and stuff like that online. So we decided to create the workshop to allow people to be able to do this themselves. So that way, like if we can't help, they will be able to know how to do it themselves.
That is so needed. I need that training. I think, yeah, it is so important to be able to travel. Should I always have and face that problem? Like, I think I know what I'm doing, and then I have no idea where the sun comes from. So it is
Yeah, it's been
so great, really good.
we've had a lot of really good feedback about the service. Basically, what we like to do is have a kind of seamless integration of people online and people in the room. And as Dalen was saying, like a lot of community meetings, people aren't able to make it if they're out of town for whatever reason. But we found that we've got roughly 10 times the amount of viewers after the events as we have during the event. So the reach is fantastic. And it's been a great service. And yeah, Dalen can run that by himself now. And yeah, we're going to build up some capacity in community so that we can teach some other people how to do that too. Robin, you got a question for us?
Just sharing some comments there. Thanks, Dalen, for that. Back in 2016, I was trying to implement Cisco telepresence across the Shuswap Nation. And the reason at the time, because it had the best video conferencing services. And I thought we should have seamless technology to connect all of our nations. We should have centralized file management for all of our nations. You want to share a title and rights agreement or anything, we should have template. It should be at our fingertips. And that was the idea of creating our data center on reserve, as a pilot. And we strung a fiber optic cable from the city of Kamloops over to the res. They were building, you guys probably all know the Antco building. It was brand new at the time, and the basement was just going to be storage. It was like a mausoleum, right? Big cement walls, blah, blah, blah. I said, wait, that's perfect for our little data center. And thankfully, they agreed to lease us that space. And it was more of a concept so we could start connecting nations. And some of what Dalen was saying, that one-touch video conferencing. And, I think back to Mount Polley. You guys probably remember when that spill happened. People were sitting by the river wondering if we could fish. Instead, we should be able to one-touch technology, connect all the people along the rivershed and say, don't fish for now until we know what's going on, and we're still not at that level, and that was 2016 that I kind of knew data centers were going to be a big thing, right? And lo and behold, probably about 3 weeks ago, Kamloops just announced 2 new AI data centers are planning. So Kamloops, Kelowna, probably the area you guys are talking about are all kind of hubs because they're outside the earthquake zone. That's why you see these data centers popping up in Kamloops and Kelowna. And that's why I wanted our people to get involved. So Ernest was talking earlier, and I say this a lot in my speeches, we were legislated out of the economy. This term of lazy Indian is a myth because everything we try to do and succeed in, we were legislative out. Forestry, fisheries, all these different things we were starting to succeed at, agriculture. In our past, we were legislated out of those economies. So what I seen is data and technology as an opportunity for us not only to catch up, as people were talking about in today's conversation, but leapfrog. We have an opportunity right now to leapfrog, not play catch up. So that's why I'm involved in data centers. I think it's an opportunity for our people to quit talking about data sovereignty and blah, 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 and just do it. Build a micro data center in each community, and there's an opportunity for larger data centers as well. That's one thing I'm working on, but we just have to do it and implement it and start doing it and not overanalyze that we need to have our own files and access our own information. That conversation has been going on for 10 years, especially in health and a lot of other different areas. You just have to do it. And that's what I like to do is just do it, and you build it, and then you start filling it up with all the data that you guys are talking about. And not only that, you put telecommunications in there. So, a couple other things I'm working on is like virtual film production. So, with COVID and a lot of other different things, you're not going to be seeing films being done in like natural settings here. I'm outside Valley View Arena, so you guys probably know Kamloops and Cache Creek and all those areas are kind of used for large films, right? Now you can replicate the external environment inside of a film studio, and it's almost seamless, man. The technology is amazing. So we're looking at building virtual film studios on reserve. That again will leapfrog the film industry, right? Because it's already trending towards that direction. You need way less staff. You don't have to shut down streets. You only require like a fifth of the people to run a film when you're using virtual film production, right? So we're looking at building those on reserve, and also AI, man, that's changing the ball game on everything, right? Like I just finished up a research project on housing. So it's how to quickly deploy housing using AI. So the whole permitting approval process, even the construction process, like you plunk a design on a specific parcel ID inside of any municipality, and it'll spit out your pro formas to say, okay, you put this type of house zoned in this particular area, here's what it's going to cost you. And you shut down all the red tape and the whole permitting and approvals process for every municipality in BC. So that was a huge data initiative, right? And all that data, I'm telling the company that ran it, I want that data stored on reserve. So we're not only thinking about our own data, but there's an opportunity for us to manage all the other data that's being generated, especially in BC outside the lower mainland, right? So that was my kind of goal for getting involved in data centers, is not only to focus on our own market, but, house data from everywhere, so it's not stored in the US. It's stored in Canada on reserve. So, you know, we're not too late to the ball game. You know, there's still a lot of opportunity. Like I'm just seeing announcements almost monthly on, you know, like Calgary, $10 billion investment in data centers, right? So we have to make sure we're part of that economy. And the reason why I'm saying all this is because young guys like Dalen, you guys are talking about education and training in IT and all different fields. You have to create jobs and opportunities for them too. You know, it's something to get them trained up, but you got to get them excited. You know, bring them into these different centers so it incentivizes them to go to school for a particular area, and not just a base level understanding of education. I'm talking about degrees and master's programs, right? That's the level of education we need in these fields, not just you know, basic education, right? And there'll be the self-motivated people that'll go out, maybe Dalen and others. And you know, I went out and got a business degree, but it's hard to do that without, you know, people seeing some light at the end of the tunnel, some job and some opportunity. And given our resources are scarce and a lot of our reserves, like I know Stedtlium Nation have a lot of small reserves and high mountainous canyon areas. So you have to be inventive when it comes to finding jobs and opportunity and technology. If as long as you have a fiber optic cable and you have power, you know, then there's an opportunity to be involved in the tech sector, right? So that's what excites me because it brings, you know, once you have that fiber optic cable into your reserve, and you have power, then there's an opportunity. You don't have to leave the community. You can benefit from technology just by having those resources, right? Because, you know, I grew up around there too. So it's, you know, like you have fishing, obviously, and some forestry, but some dying industries. You got to evolve and diversify your economy, and technology is a great way to do that. So just want to share a few of my experiences and things I'm working on. And yeah, it's exciting, but we've got to, sorry to say, get our ass in gear and get some things rolling and get some opportunities for young people. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hit the nail right on the head there, is that we've got to find jobs for the young people that are excited about this field, because that excitement is something that you foster and it turns into data centers, it turns into new kind of companies, like as Vanessa said, like some of the young people that we've already met through James and the work they're doing is just really inspiring. So yeah, I agree 100%. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. That's really, really exciting to hear all that you guys are doing.
Yeah.
I mean, AI can just plop that in and figure out all the building stuff. That's pretty awesome. Like when we went to Web Summit and I heard about all the stuff AI is doing, I'm just like, what the heck? It's like blow your mind kind of things. And that's amazing. You guys are working on those things. So yeah, I mean, the educational aspect and inspiring young people to really go for the higher education, and you know, that's kind of where it's at. I know it's like difficult in like you said, in the small towns, in small reserves where, you know, yeah, we have big mountains and stuff, but we do have fiber that's recently come through, and you know, those opportunities are going to open. So I appreciate you having that kind of inspiration and experience there. That's just absolutely awesome, and the education that you've gotten, and you know, having Karime just on this as well with TRU. You know, there's just so many kind of options and areas to go through. So we'll definitely have kind of all those connections and resources, and we'll have to have another conversation probably on this. But you know, aside from that, a lot of times easy to plan. It's another thing to implement, right? So we can talk about it all we want, and if we don't do anything about it, it's not really totally useful. So, you know, planning moving forward, you know, each little step is going to bring us forward into more of these things that we're talking about right now. And that's like super exciting, you know, not just making plans, but actually doing them.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to mention that with a new expansion for the TRU, we also have installed a new TV system with new technology for those students, that hopefully our goal is to connect with what Kamloops is doing. As Robin mentioned, why now we can go all the way. Not just adult basic education to finish the adulthood, but now we see people wanted to do degrees or bachelor's degrees. So we have just completed the installation of the system, which is really good internet for those ones who might want to be connected and do more. So hopefully it happens.
Actually, kind of a sneak peek. We are planning in upcoming webinar, a webinar hopefully with Southern Alberta Institute of Technology. We were chatting with them the other day. So creating these connections and these opportunities are going to be, key to kind of shaping the future here. Is there any other comments, questions? Otherwise, we can go on to another question here. We've got, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I wondered how long the scheduled time is today.
Oh yeah,
So-
it goes till about noon.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
great. I'm just gonna listen a little bit more.
Okay, yeah, no
Yeah.
worries. And if you have to go, like I said, we'll have it recorded. There were quite a few people who couldn't make it, and we'll just be attached to all the resources and the things we've been discussing. Also too, going back into some of the questions, James, wanting to talk about Web3 spaces and what is that? Because I don't actually know what that is either, but maybe you could go into that.
Oh, the rabbit hole. First off, I wanted to, before I kind of get into that, and because the discussion's huge and vast. Something that I've been hearing in this discussion, which is really exciting, is it's partnership. And another word that Ernest had said is trust. So when you have partnership, you have trust, and then you add the elements that are required within those aspects, you have some success. So clearly, folks, there's a recipe here, and I'm when I listen to Lois as well, I go back to that very foundational piece, which is really critical to the Indigenous lens, which is that we have a choice, that and folks may or may not want to have these technologies as part of their systems. And I use actually Cookby Darrell's words all the time, and which is are these technologies harming our people? And that is the real question. So hesitation of having even specifically 5G technology, it's there, and the reasons why are our relatives are spending time on systems that are not helping us. In fact, they're harming us in some ways. So I just wanted to lay that out because it's really important to keep that framework. But I also want to jump ahead and that conversation with the last gentleman, Robin. Robin, thanks for those insights. Really amazing, and you're bang on. Like in the industry, certainly we could go down the road and talk about how industry is progressing in that way in business use cases. But interesting, there was another conversation I had with Michelle from SGS, and we were going to change that language, and actually instead of using use cases, we were going to use our way. So a little bit of decolonizing language is definitely a way to go. I think that use cases like you explained are really where Indigenous communities can get involved, and who has the access to energy, which I was going to put in the chat. It's our lands as Indigenous people. And that's the power of what we hold in our community. So just want to raise that context. But the library and those other services, really critical in data governance as foundational pieces of education, but also those systems need to be integrated with Indigenous systems. So this is where the rubber hits the road, if you will, and real value. So on that specific Web3 discussion, Vanessa, I would love to do a very short presentation from a company that I work with. But in essence, Web3 is a third version of the internet. So basically, it's it's an area that some call it the dark web. And I don't want to use that in the context of what we're doing here because that has a negative connotation to it. So Web3 work is something that Nations First had brought up in that conversation. And full disclosure, I work with Nations First. I have a bit of a position. I'm not an employee of the company, but I help them support them in their work. And there's another company that I work for, and that's Finhaven Technology. It's a technology company in Vancouver, and they work specifically in Web3 spaces. So instead of going down the road on what Web3 is in a technical sense, maybe I'd like to talk about, which you put on the on original title, which are our digital IDs. And so I've been in this space for a very long time. My own company's been doing research on digital IDs, and they're very specific to decentralized models. So if you want to Google, folks, Google decentralized models or digital identities in decentralized models. Take a look, Google it, even AI it, like Robin was mentioning, and do a bit of a dive on your own time on what that is, because I think we would need probably a master class of like a week, of going through what is blockchain. And so it's daunting, subject. So what I'll just say, it's a third version of the internet, and it holds a very specific cryptology that is useful in various ways. And so the research that I've been doing for a very long time has focused on digital identity. And my whole goal was to replace the status card with a digital identity. And so that process is actually a lot more complicated than you might think. And there's also the moral question about Indigenous knowledge and how that works within that system. So it's a bit complicated. And if you don't mind, Vanessa, I'd love to pull up a slide deck. Is that okay? Excellent. Okay. So I should also disclose that I'm also working specifically with Hot Lip Nation on this project. And quite honestly, it is with this aligns with, I just check it to see, make sure the slide's up. Is the slide working there, Victoria? Yeah, you can see it. Okay, great. I don't know if it's full screen. I can't tell from my end, but
I don't think it's full screen. It's I'm not sure how you'd do that.
that's okay. Oh, I can do it. Yeah, here we go.
Okay.
How's that?
Perfect, thank you.
Excellent. Okay. So I should clarify my statements here today because it's being recorded, and that this is a very specific project that Finhaven is working with Hot Lip Nation. And really it's really tough. I use that phrase early adoption because it's really tough for folks to really understand these systems. And it's really unfair of me, because I know these systems, to assume that's my relatives know what this is. And it's really interesting that there's use cases within that's being as adopted mainstream, and we may not be aware of them, but they're actually being used. So this is why it's really important for folks like Hotlip to be embracing this, and then also Nations First has been talking to SGS and that system as well with DAOs. We won't go into that today, but that's a really good primer for some really exciting work in data governance. So I'll go through the deck, and I'll try not to take up all this time with folks. But so reimagining a world where identity is owned and not borrowed. So this is a kind of a statement that we came up with the team, and it really was around identity. And typically under the Indigenous Services Canada, a status card, under the Indian Act, we're numbers. We have a number, and it's identified through a third party, specifically with First Nations Health Authority. And in some cases, it's not the best. So it's really, our identity is owned by somebody else. And it should be owned by us. And that's what we're trying to achieve. So who's Finhaven Technology? So Finhaven Technology is a financial technology company with years of experience in implementing blockchain infrastructure, specializing in real world applications and use cases. So it's a think tank of technologists. Our CTO is the former CTO of Pacific Blue Cross. So if you think of that insurance company, you can see how that technical background is really important. But it's led by the CEO, and his name is DH, and he is leader in investment, but he's also embraced decentralized models to use that technology and use those systems. So we won't go in those, and typically a lot of people call it cryptocurrency. But this is actually more on the fintech side, which is investment. But we're not going to go into that because that's not the point here. My work is all about digital identities, and the province of BC is right now going to a lot of First Nations and asking their input on digital identities and finding out, getting some feedback. So a little bit on the journey of obtaining a status. It's a lengthy application process. I don't have to tell most of the folks on this call that there's a lot of barriers to get your status card. In some cases, it could take multiple years to get your status card, and if there's a problem with that application, it can create more backlog. What does this mean? This means we have inaccessible essential services. Sometimes you can wait 6 months to 24 months. And in this time, we don't have access to FNHA. We don't have access to other services as well. So the current system is connection to the Indian Act. We're all part of the Indian Act as status First Nations. We're imposed concept of identity. The status card is imposed on us by the federal government. It's based on colonial framework that contradicts traditional definition of our membership and identity, what I call natural law. There's a failure to capture tradition and culture. So when it comes to identity, it's our picture and our number, and then where we're from. There's much more to us than that, and clearly we know that within our community structures. So pathways that can enable that and facilitate discriminatory actions. So what keeps it going? Well, it's 99% of First Nations people have experienced racism and discrimination presenting their status cards. So I want to mention also, folks, that this is sensitive information. This what I'm showing you today, it can probably hurt you. It can probably feel very personal, because this is part of your family. And probably in some cases along your pathway, you're going to have that experience of either racism or some effect because of residential school. And so I'm just warning folks that there might be some triggers in what we're discussing today. And I ask you to reach out to anybody that you can, if you're having some issues. You can find a higher level of health support, either through our health systems that we currently have, or a good friend or an elder that can help you through your pain that you may be going through at this time. So just keep that in mind, that these are more than just stats. These are actually real life experiences. And this one very particular is Maxwell Johnson and his granddaughter. And you probably heard of this. It's back in 2019. And they were handcuffed in the, I won't say the bank, but they were handcuffed in the bank because they had a distribution given to them by their nation. And they went to the bank and they used their status cards and they were handcuffed. It's one thing that's in the news that went under the radar because it was outrage at the time, but this still happens for folks. And these are the tough things that are going on in our communities. And this is essentially why we need to change the system. We need to do something disrupt. Maybe we can avoid this perhaps in the future. Impending progress towards data sovereignty. So, internet connectivity, it's huge. It's lacking. These are numbers that First Nation Technology Council have come up with. There's limited control over data. So this is the whole reason behind the data governance project, is because you have to understand who has control. Inadequate privacy protection. So I have to mention that it's a fact. The First Nations Health Authority experienced a cyber attack in May 2024, last year. And the reason why I talk about this is because it actually affected me, because my data was basically breached in that process. So so it becomes very personal for me. And so I've taken some steps to help alleviate that, which FNHA gave me. However, I'm pretty sure that some of my relatives don't know the process and on how to do that. And we don't know what that means for them. So there's definitely some key issues that we need to go towards data sovereignty and having good data governance mindset. So it sounds like I'm complaining a lot here today, but that's how we get to the change part. Lack of public knowledge and understanding. So legitimacy of status cards. The government has become negligent providing the proper relevant sources to educate public service workers. So this was a quote from Chief Marilyn Slett of the Heiltsuk Nation back in 2022. Some of you may know her, a real leader for her community. And so she's bang on, by the way. History of status cards. The media and the schools have failed to educate people on the status cards and why First Nations people have them. So this is from Chief Stuart Phillip, who many of you know, back in 2022. So these are the results. Fear of discrimination, deferring First Nations individuals from presenting their status cards, dependence on imposed colonial systems to validate and recognize status, delayed access to essential services like healthcare, education, and housing. Service providers mistakenly reject valid status cards, preventing individuals accessing rightful benefits. So, quite honestly, this isn't new to a lot of folks. However, at Finhaven, I've brought this into the company, and the company itself has said, James, we got to figure out how to do this better. And there is definitely a better way. So to embrace transformative change, we can focus on three of the following: reinventing the process of issuing status. Number two, providing First Nations access and full control over the personal information, how it's shared, and aligning the concept of status with the nation's definition of membership and how that works. So Indigenous law, how does that align with a new process? So I'll get into it just a little bit. What is a DID? Designed to protect information, controlled information sharing. Individuals decide that oversight. Number two, it's tamper-proof. So one thing on cryptographically protected information is that it's absolutely secure. And that is a far cry from those systems that we're currently using that are third party. And I use third party like how you sign up for Facebook or how you sign up for your online banking. Those are all third party applications that not yet are using DIDs as verification. No single point of failure. So great reduces the likelihood of data breaches, stepping away from centralized storages. So I don't want to go in the weeds on that today, but lots to learn here, folks. So the goals: promote data sovereignty by following OCAP principles. And if you don't know what OCAP principles are, it's a framework and it stands for ownership, control, access, and protection. And that's something that Peter and Vanessa have been doing with this project with the BC RIGC, which I want to highlight today. A very important organization here in BC, and their support with SGS, LTC, and also with the Hot Lip Nation. Prevent delays in accessing essential services. Number two, I skipped over that. Gain independence from colonial systems by integrating traditional practices, absolutely key. Safeguard personal data of First Nations, that's important. And inclusion of cultural significant attributes, meaning in the tech sector, attributes are, what are important to something. And so what's important to Indigenous people, from my perspective, is language, culture, our way of life, our elders, our young people, the information that our oral traditions, those are significant attributes, and you all know what those are. And this is how I like to express what data governance is really about. So some stats: 203 First Nations in BC, healthier outcomes. All I can see from this work is access to improved connections to community, as well as health benefits providers and community membership needs. That's going to greatly increase with better systems. So data sovereignty, there's 8 modern treaty nations in BC. So data governance using OCAP principles and local governance models are really good for implementation. And of course, the large population of Indigenous people in BC just gives us greater, action to work on these projects. And that's where SGS in the data governance work, and Ernest, really applaud you for really seeing the leadership value of this. this allows us to get to those spaces, and that really focuses and talking, and where Billy's enthusiasm is there. This is where we get how we get things moving forward. So I won't go into all these, and my date. My birth date on here. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a demo, if you will, of the user interface. So a digital ID would look like this on your smartphone. And what you'll see here is that there's a picture of me. There's a logo that actually I created, so I'm not using cultural appropriation from Clues First Nation. And then also it has a traditional name, which is Hais Kaimuch, which is not my traditional name. It's actually just a generalized statement of saying important First Nations person. And then my name, my English name, and then also the crypto identification, which sits on the blockchain. And so my nickname is Jimbo. Many of our relatives like to use nicknames. Why can't we use that within our systems of identification? My date of birth. Well, one thing that's correct there is my year. So I'm in a 70s baby. So the internet wasn't a part of what we do. So so this is quite a stretch from those days. But this is typically how you would use it. It's verifiable, it's accessible, and it's independent from any third party. So you know this system, probably you've used this with your smartphones. QR codes being used, but it's the interface and the back end that's actually really quite sophisticated, and it needs to be system adopted, meaning a government needs to adopt this, or a service provider like Pacific Blue Cross needs to adopt this, or First Nations Health Authority needs to adopt this. And so I apologize, folks, if there's any background noise, but sometimes my headset picks it up. So what are we hoping to achieve? Improved access to services, increased participation from communities, enhanced community governance, decreased digital literacy, and strengthen data security. Number one, we don't need any more scams, and we need to get ahead of this. That's my opinion. So let's work together to rewrite the narrative on what Indigenous identity means for First Nations and set the bar for good data governance and e-government systems for First Nations. So I pose a few questions, and I think this is really good. I don't want to take up all the time. I don't want to make this the James show, but one of the questions are, what are the opportunities within spaces for nation or individual to get involved with in the tech sector in general? That question's come up already, and that's really important. And number two, what can a nation do to be an early adopter? Can we maybe see how these systems can work? Can we do a pilot? Can we what are the possibilities for that? So a really good question. But number three is where I wanted to leave this discussion, and that is, where is this technology currently being used? So I want to use one that you may or may not know about, and that's with the British Columbia government. So the BC government are actually using Web3. They don't use that word, but they're using a decentralized model for identity. And I use it all the time. When I want to sign into BC services, I go on the app, and that's where I can connect to my BC right there. So I simply have my Face ID, and then I can use the services. And most people don't understand or know that this system is actually based on a crypto or blockchain solution. So it's called Hyperscape, and it allows me to access all kinds of business services. So there's only another province that's actively using that, and that's Alberta. Ontario's right behind them, and the federal government will be shortly after that. So what this signals is this an opportunity for First Nations to actually be a part of this and be able to implement this? So the government is actually going out to First Nations, as I mentioned, asking for their opinion. I'm working with Hotlip on this to help guide them and help give a response and ask the right questions, because they're interested, because the request is, what is Indigenous identity in these systems? And that question alone begs so much discussion. It's huge. And so that's why I brought it up. Where are these use cases. And we can see it clearly with the BC government. And I can pull it up. I'll stop sharing. Or I can just keep sharing it. We can go back. But I just leave it there, folks. And I just, I open it up to the art of possibility and what we could do. Now, Nations First has some good solutions that are really important to this process, but it's really being disruptive and making change, creating change that's not harming people. So that is an important piece of the work. So I will stop sharing and I will pull up if you want to continue the discussion or you have, I'm sure you have a million questions, but I can pull up the government's website where they actually have that system in place as soon as I can find it.
Actually, it's really neat that you're bringing this up because I wasn't even aware of it. Or like, I just heard of blockchain when I met Ethan. And I mean, that's like, I'm just like thinking right now, oh, we need a workshop, like you said, on Web3 and blockchain and all of that. And we also need maybe a workshop available for OCAP, because I think that's important, as members of, not just First Nations and even, a member of BC and Canada, is to understand what these things are so that we're prepared and understand, the technology behind it and what we can do to, be a part of making them happen. So thank you for bringing this up. I really appreciate it. Okay, and continue, please.
That's great. I mean, lots to chew on here, folks. And thanks, Vanessa. I think so. It's a passion of mine. So I learned early on. Just go back to the genesis or the origin story of how this all took place. When I became chief of Clues, that's when I started to see things clearly with data governance. And what I mean by that is there's a process that chief and councils have to go through under the Indian Act, and that's called a BCR, so Band Council Resolution. Some folks have heard of this, and some may not. So it's a requirement under the Indian Act that First Nations supply a Band Council resolution on any major decision that goes on in that community. And we were starting to do BCRs on just about everything that we did. And it had to have some connection to, capital costs for the nation at Clues, and it had to connect to activities. It had to be a report, had to have certain language. That was the government language, which is Robert's Rule or typical language in business use cases. But I started to see that example is one way that we're dependent on that federal Indian Act system, and that it wasn't quite right, because why are we reporting to the federal government on our activities when that should be a sovereign sort of act? And so I started to go down the rabbit hole and realize that under the Indian Act, we really are wards of the government. And to get out of that, it's not that easy. However, what we can do, we can arm ourselves in what data means and how can we use that internally to our own benefit. And this goes back to what Robin was saying. How do we incentivize? How do we make these opportunities? There's the training, obviously. There's the there's the business that could take place through that training, and Peter was alluding to that. Like, where do we bring that? What are those education opportunities? So one thing I'll say is that there is some, and you don't necessarily have to go to school to get your MBA, like in your business, or get a master's degree in computer science. Those are definitely good pathways to go. So I mean, here's a great job. Engineer for Google. You can make a very large amount of money being an engineer that's learning Python, learning different systems to code. However, it takes a bit of time to understand those systems and to be certified. So that's one pathway. But you could also be a Python certified developer through a micro certification project, which First Nations Technology Council supports. And there's other institutions that do micro certification that can get you into from 10 weeks to a year to be Python certified as a designer and developer. So personally, I don't do code. I'm not a coder. I'm the interpreter. However, there are plenty of opportunities for young people, even people my age, on the elder end of things, who can actually learn some of these techniques. One thing I'll mention to you is in the AI world, which Robin alluded to, is a thing called prompt engineering. And so sometimes, folks, we got to just take a step back and go, let's not think about what the technology is. The technology is being built. AI is one thing, and that's a tool. And that tool can be used in a very specific way with our daily use, as Robin mentioned. It definitely supports things that you're doing, Ernest. It supports things that you're doing, Vanessa, and all the professionals here, and anybody doing work. It definitely has really good use for that. But there's also the moral question we haven't completely done yet. So we have to make sure that we understand the pathways of that AI tool and making sure that that data that we're sharing in an open source way, say ChatGPT, is not being used by large language models that are being used in the general purpose, because we have confidential information. I'll use treaty as an example. That confidential information really has to go. Thanks, Robin. Good to have you. Good to meet you. We'll connect. Also on that, folks, I'm on LinkedIn. So if you wanna, I'll put my LinkedIn and my email as well, and you can connect with me. But so on that discussion, we could go down the rabbit hole and I'll keep talking, so we got to stop. But what I'll say though is that there's opportunities for to be a part of these systems, and prompt engineering is just one way that if you can understand what that is and how you can participate in that way, you can actually be a benefit to organizations. So to give you an example, IIFC, our company would be very interested in having specifically hiring somebody just to do that. And the reason why is because all the rest of us don't have time for that. We don't have time to be using AI in a way. We have it locally, we have time, but we don't have time to understand the systems. So we need somebody dedicated to that, and that's a position. So, I look at somebody like, sorry, apologize, names here. Dylan? Dylan. Okay, yeah. So I look at his expertise, and one of the things that Hot Lip's doing right now is going through a process of having a community champion, and that's really an important role to have somebody in the community. By the way, that's what it used to be when I back it was. Well, I think I was a youth at one time, and everybody's like, "Hey James, can you go fix this computer?" Or "Hey James, can you go set up?" Like we did cultural camps, we did everything. Like that was a heyday of my life, was just being out in the territory, or what Denny former National Chief Gerald Antoine says, being on the land. And that is key to us being successful with data governance. So that is one thing I know that Hotlip is in the process of doing. And sometimes it's just a community member that is just shining in technical knowledge, but also the community. So I always point the conversation to, it's less of the IT and it's more of the IM. And it's more about people. And the technology is the tool. Like Ernest said, that's the tool we need. Let's pull that tool down. But we don't rely on that for our own indigenous. It's human centric. I'd say we as my elders, indigenous people, we rely on our oral traditions. We rely on knowledge from our knowledge keepers. We rely on our leaders, our elected leaders, and our historical leaders, our traditional leaders. So those are what we found. Those are the foundations for us. So data governance starts there. Lots to chew.
I really appreciate the digital ID piece, because one of the things I've noticed is when we cross borders, like for health, for example, our health files don't go with us. I notice that in everyday life, even if you got a warranty on your vehicle, you go to one dealer to get something fixed, to go a different place, they have no idea what you're doing in most places. So that digital ID, and also, if we think about it, it actually fits well with the OCAP, because you own it, you control it, right? Yada yada. But of course, it puts us at a disadvantage, because it creates more openness for identity theft and all that crap, right? So there's do's and don'ts, or there's positives and negatives and everything, but I think we need to figure out how we're going to deal with this, and even for internally, like within our territory. We had a whole services meeting the other day about the crisis, right? And and the different providers that are out there, we don't connect. The only thing that we have in common is the people. And so the people are the ones that carry their information and all that kind of stuff. So we need to start thinking about how we deal with that, and I think it's definitely an important thing. But I think the portability of our information is really critical, and we need to figure that one out. I'm definitely going to be doing more. I'll be keeping my ear out for this Web3 business. It definitely seems like something that we need to be aware of and understand, appreciate a bit more. It's a different way of looking at it. And I think you're right. It's really about how we make this change, and it is about creating those community leaders. And I think that's kind of what we're doing here with this project too. It's about creating those leaders and have an opportunity to have leaders come forth. And and I think that's the beauty of it. And I think it's always about capacity building, and the more folks we have that are in the know, who actually come out and share, and do come out with that good intent, we need to nurture that and celebrate that. So, and I think when I think about a lot of this stuff, it comes down to a lot of personal decision. And if we choose not to receive information to inform decision making, that's our choice. And I think that's one thing I really like too about what you talked about. We all have a choice in what we do. And and I a lot of times we make a choice just because it's, I don't know how to say it, just because we think it's going to protect ourselves. And sometimes it doesn't. And I think having that, and this, like I said, where this trust comes back into play. But I think at some point we're gonna have to start to trust something. And if we don't trust ourselves, we're in trouble. So it goes back to this whole social stuff, right? And I think when we look at the current state of things in our nation, we do have a large population that may not be able to take care of themselves. Right. And so we need different tools to help with that. And we need to do the best that we can. And and I think to me that's what drives what we do. It's about trying to do the best that we can in whatever we do. So I really enjoyed the conversation, and it was nice to meet Robin, and good to see James on there again and making those connections. And thanks for everybody participating here. And Lois, thank you for coming in. It takes people who have an interest to participate and hopefully help you see a few things and learn a few things. And yeah, I think that's it for me. Thanks.
Thanks, Ernest. Toby?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. Like, this was really fascinating conversation. I learned some really interesting things, and there's stuff I'm going to be following up with individuals about. And just, James, I really love the whole idea of disruption. And from where I'm at, I'm really hoping that public libraries are going to be a force for the kind of disruption that we need right now. And, so that's part of why I'm sitting here listening and learning. And I just wanted to share this thing with everybody because I listened to this documentary on CBC it's called Who Broke the Internet? And it's talking about the dangers and in how like social media and stuff like this is set up right now. And then the guy, Cory Doctorow, who is, pretty famous disruptor himself. Anyway, he talks about how Canada is really poised to disrupt some of this stuff. And there's a whole bunch of really amazing ways of developing new technologies in this space that could really change a lot of things. So I'll put the link in the chat. And if anyone wants to just listen to that, it's really interesting. I think it could give, especially Dalen, I'm thinking, because as a young person, I think it could give you some really cool ideas. And I'm really dedicated to getting out to some of our job fairs. And I don't know if like Peter and Vanessa have been going to any of the job fairs. Have you?
Peter has been, right?
Yeah, we've done one for the LTC, and there's one through SGS, I think, that we've done in the last year. But yeah, absolutely, we could come out to those.
Yeah, I want to keep doing that because actually at the library, my position of library director and the branch manager for Lillooet branch are going to be open within the next 5 to 6 years. We're starting our succession planning, and I really want to get that out there because our library, we have enough money to support someone's education. And so I'm telling this group that unofficially now, and there'll be a more official succession planning and outreach happening, but just keep that in mind, especially Ernest, if you know anybody who would be interested in going to library school, let me know. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much. It's been really interesting.
Awesome. Thanks for coming out.
I'm gonna do a quick draw here. We've got the t-shirt and the tote.
And just while you're doing that, Dalen forgot to mention in his intro that he's going to be on the First Nations Technology Council. And he'll be at the first meeting for that next month. And I think it's fantastic. We're going to have Statly representation on that.
Yeah, the first meeting for it is September 12th. I just got confirmation yesterday after I finished work that our first meeting will be on the 12th, taking place in the morning.
Yeah, Vanessa and I met a bunch of those guys when we were at the Web Summit, and yeah, it's going to be fantastic.
Oh, I just
Congratulations.
Oops, sorry, Dalen. Yes, I was actually, I had that on my list here to bring that up as well. So that's really, really awesome. Congrats, Dalen. So the names that we pulled out here is Byron and Robin. So
Awesome.
our third time winner again. And yeah, I just want to thank everyone for coming for this meeting, for this webinar. And I'm gonna throw a link up here, and there'll be also a follow-up email with a link for subscribing to our newsletter as well as upcoming events and webinars. And yeah, we'll just be keeping everyone kind of posted as to what's coming up. We've got next week on Wednesday the part 2 of Stallium Inherent Title and Rights with Michelle Edwards. Next week on Wednesday, I'll also include that in the follow-up email, and we'll have more coming up in the next coming months. And if there's anything else, any feedback and other topics that you're interested in, please feel free to just shoot me an email with those ideas and feedback. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. Thanks, James, for coming out for this. This was fantastic. And thanks to Vanessa for coordinating. She's a lot better at that than I am.
We're team.
Awesome. Yes, team. Go team.
It was a wonderful, wonderful experience, folks. And I'll say in Najutham, Chatham Quiname, and what that means is we'll see you later. So take care, everybody.
Definitely. Have a good day.
Take care. Ciao.